Okay.
Oh my god, bro.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome to my podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about birth order and how that affects our relationships. If you guys could just introduce yourself and your birth order.
My name's Kayla. I'm the oldest.
I'm Jasmine, and I'm the middle child.
Okay. And I'm Olivia. I'm the youngest. So to start off, I just wanted to ask you guys, what are some qualities that you associate with your birth order?
So I feel like something that people associate with the oldest child, especially with like eldest daughters, is being very type A, responsible, caretaker kind of role, which I definitely resonate with.
Yeah, I definitely hear that a lot. I feel like that's usually what people associate older sisters with. And what about you, Jasmine?
So if you've ever heard of something called middle child syndrome, then you'll like think of how middle children are usually more rebellious and perhaps independent, sociable, due to the fact that they could be overlooked in family dynamics. So I feel like that does resonate with me a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And when we're talking about these traits, we usually see them just like, this is what we're like, this is who we are. But a lot of times I think when people talk to different people, like whether it be their friendships, their family, or maybe a romantic partner, I feel like our personalities might change a little bit. So just talking about friends for right now, do you guys think you act the same way with your siblings as you do with your friends?
Definitely not. I feel like growing up together, basically spending our whole lives together, we developed like a very specific dynamic that is so hard to replicate when you make friends who you oftentimes don't live with. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the shared experience of like the same home, the same parents, like the same physical environment. So I do feel like we kind of have our own wavelength that only we are on.
Right.
Yeah, basically what she said.
Okay. It's interesting that you bring up the environment having a big effect on how we develop. I mean, we all grew up relatively in the same house, and so that doesn't only have an effect on us, but it affects our parents as well. So, you know, we were raised as similarly as possible. Definitely, I think parents unconsciously raise their children differently, just depending on how experienced they are in parental roles and stuff. But definitely our environment can impact how we grew up and how our parents treat us. So, for example, Kayla, they might have been more protective of you and encouraged you to go into more leadership roles than, say, me and Jasmine. Now I'm going to move on and ask you guys specific questions. So, Jasmine, we'll start with you. Are there any specific traits or behaviors associated with your birth order that you find helpful or even challenging in friendships?
Actually, this could be a double-edged sword. This could really be a double-edged sword. So, like, another trait for middle children is kind of like playing the mediator, because you literally are in the middle. So you put yourself in the position of like mending or solving conflicts and making sure that people are getting along, whatever. So I feel like I definitely tend to put myself in that position in my friendships, whether it's for good or for bad, just because sometimes conflict does need to be resolved in a healthy way. And sometimes I'll just make it so that it happens quick and, you know, as efficient as possible, which might not be the best way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it could be helpful or it could be bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. And Kayla, do you feel that your birth order influences your communication style in a romantic relationship?
I think it influences my attachment style a lot. I think being an oldest sibling has contributed to my anxiety. I think they're like growing up is a lot of expectations, even if they're not real. They're like invisible expectations. Mm-hmm. And it's always like, okay, you have to set a good example. So I feel like
definitely that has contributed to a lot of anxiety and sort of an anxious attachment style, which is something that I kind of have to navigate in my romantic relationships. So in the relationship I'm in now, we have very different personalities, where I'm more uptight and very like logical brained, and the person that I'm in a relationship with is more spontaneous and creative brained. And so I think that having those different personalities are really, like, you know, they say opposites attract. So we both bring our strengths to the table, and we both learn from each other.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think that's a good point about how kind of opposites may attract. And can you just mention what birth order your partner is?
My partner's an only child.
Okay. And that's interesting because there's not a lot of research on how only children are affected in relationships, which I feel like definitely kind of leaves them out. And it's important to talk about them because that's a big thing, because I feel like it's usually seen, oh, do you have siblings? Usually people are like, yeah. And either they're my best friends or they're my enemies, which can definitely shape your life. But a lot of only children. Sometimes both.
Depending on your stage of life.
Exactly. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Now, to end off...
Oh, we're not going to talk about when we were enemies first?
Oh. Yeah, sure. So, some quick backstory real quick. We actually all basically used to be enemies. Yeah, for some reason when we were younger, which I think is common in a lot of sibling relationships, we kind of had this passionate hatred for each other. But one day, it just ended. Yeah, I don't know. Care to speak on that?
I feel like definitely for me, I kind of like bounced between the two of you, between like who my ally was and who was my enemy. But I think like when we all kind of started like maturing, we were able to kind of get past all of our differences and merge into one group of best friends.
Mm-hmm. And I think that definitely also, like how you're saying, you kind of like switch between us. That's definitely a trait that we see a lot in middle children.
Right.
I think we also realized that we were like not competing for resources or attention. Like once we realized that we didn't have to compete for those sort of things, we're like, oh, we're in it together. Like it's us against the world, not us against each other.
Right. No, for sure. Enemies to friends.
Enemies to friends.
Okay, so on that note of us being besties for life, what do you guys think are some of the most important lessons that you've learned about relationships, particularly in light of your birth order? Two very important things I've definitely worked on in my relationships is stop comparing myself and to support people in whatever way they need. Definitely growing up, I would compare myself not only just to you guys, but to my friends, my peers. I think that's constantly something seen in younger siblings, is kind of seeing everything as a competition when it's really not. Growth is individual, so everyone's going at their own pace, and learning to support people through their growth is so important. Just providing that kind of like shoulder to lean on, reassuring people that there's no rush in life. Just go at your own pace and do what makes you happy. Don't compare yourself to others. I think that's become really important for me in my relationships.
I love that.
Thanks.
I think I'm learning that I don't have to be a people pleaser. Like, you can't make everybody happy, and the only thing you could do is be yourself. And relationships aren't perfect, and I can't make them perfect, but you just have to work through it with the people that you surround yourself with.
I guess an important lesson as a middle child is that just because I am the middle child doesn't mean that I don't deserve attention. So if sometimes I'm like not inclined to like share my thoughts or feelings, like I'll like tell myself, no, like they do matter. Like, you know, it's everyone's thoughts and feelings and whatever matters. So you should express it.
So we all obviously grew up in the same house, and it's interesting to see how we are similar in a lot of ways, but also our personalities are very different, and the way we go about some issues, the way we cope with things, I think also is different, and also to see how the relationships we make with people are different. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming. Your insight was fantastic and wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Any last comments?
Nope.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming today. I'll see you when I see you.
Yes, see you around.